This is The Drive with Dale Lolley and Matt Williamson on your 24/7 home of the black and gold. SNR, Steelers Nation Radio.
Let's talk arm length for a minute.
Yeah.
Because we did our top 21 last week, and a lot of people, not a lot, but a few people on the messages on the YouTube channel, didn't like the fact that we left off Mason Graham.
Sure. I figured we'd get some feedback on that.
And maybe we could have put him on at the end of the list somewhere.
Yeah.
Okay. But quite frankly, and I said this last week.
The last five guys on the list I wasn't married to.
No.
It was a hard list to make this year. Yeah.
He's got 32-inch arms.
Yeah.
32-inch arms.
I think he's a small body type,
And
too.
he's a small body type.
And he's not a very good athlete.
Yeah. Other than that, I mean,
he makes plays. Don't get me wrong, he's not a bad football player.
Not saying that he's a bad football player.
Right.
He's not going to be available when the Steelers draft at 21 because he specifically fits a 4-3 defense as the kind of the weak side guy. Put him over a guard, and he's going to beat up on said guard sometimes.
There's been 3 or 4 analysts that I've listened to that I really trust that are film nerds that really only think he's a third down interior pass rusher. And a good one. I mean, he gets off the ball and he makes plays and he's good with his hands and all that.
I said the exact same thing last week.
Yeah. I mean, which is always a 4-man front. I mean, again, Dick LeBeau wouldn't want him. That doesn't mean the Steelers couldn't use him. He could be their Ogunjobi. I mean, times have changed. It's not 3-4. You need Casey Hampton, Aaron Smith. And he'd definitely be useful to any team. It shocks me that he's getting like Jacksonville to 5 kind of buzz. And initially, I kind of just fell in line, like, yeah, he's great, blah, blah, blah. The more I studied him, I'm like, he's on the ground a lot. He's not a very good athlete. Doesn't have great length. He's not a bulky dude. I can't believe he's the best defensive tackle in this draft. And
I don't think he is.
And I don't think he is. And I don't think he fits here particularly well either.
He doesn't fit here at all.
Right.
They're not
going to have this dilemma. He's not going to be there.
He's not going to be there because, the comp for him that you see a lot is the Bengals defensive tackle.
Reader?
No, the old one.
Geno.
Yeah, Geno,
okay.
Geno Atkins.
Yeah.
Who also had like 32.5-inch arms.
Oh, he's initial quickness.
And was undersized.
Yeah, right.
So if he's that, okay, great.
Right.
But if he isn't, there's a long list of guys.
The Steelers could use Geno Atkins, but they wouldn't draft Geno Atkins.
You're not drafting him in the first round. Geno Atkins was a third-round draft pick.
Right. And what I mean by that is, like, if he cost you the pick knowing what Geno Atkins cost, they would take a different direction. He's a win off the snap, initial burst, really good player. I mean, they wouldn't have drafted Warren Sapp either. I mean, it's just not the style of dudes they're after. Now they take those guys more than ever, but Ogunjobi's a big 3 technique. I mean, Sapp's a big 3 technique. Grady Jarrett, Atkins, they're not – they would only be designated pass rushers.
Yeah.
And frankly, so would Aaron Donald, except he's awesome.
Right.
I mean, because he's an outlier. But the draft profile of Aaron Donald, not always right.
I mean, nobody's saying Mason Graham is the next Aaron Donald.
No, he's the best defensive tackle they could ever live. Right.
If he becomes Geno Atkins, now, okay.
That's tremendous.
That's
the
tremendous.
Jags would love that at 5 or whatever. Right.
But he doesn't fit the Steelers scheme.
Yeah, and I don't think
And he's not a nose tackle.
No, I don't want him. He deals with a lot of doubles because he's good.
Right.
And that helps Grant, and I think he helps Grant more than the other way around at Michigan. But I don't want him sitting there taking on nose or double teams all day.
No.
I mean, he just doesn't have a lot of sand in his pants. He doesn't play super strong, and he doesn't play very athletic.
So there was one person on the message board. Well, the Steelers could do with him what they did with Casey Hampton. No. Casey Hampton, while listed at 320 pounds.
Right.
I can tell you he was never 320 pounds in a Steelers uniform.
I bet. And there's a lot of mass. I mean, he's like a giant bowling ball. I mean, they're different body types.
So I've stood next to Casey Hampton a lot over the years. And I was there at the combine when Graham came up on the state. He looked like an inside linebacker.
Yeah.
The body type is not anywhere close to being similar.
So before that, we were talking about Graham a little bit because I guess the message boards heated up on us. And Tyler, our buddy over there, gets us on YouTube. It's like, check out the picture of him holding the national title next to J.J. McCarthy.
Yeah.
They look like they're the same guy. And they don't look like Tuitt, Hampton, Hayward. Not that all those guys look the same. Hargrave. I mean, any of the D linemen they've had, Benton, any of the guys they've had success with don't really look like him. I think he's a good player.
He's a good player, and we're not saying he's not a good player.
Right,
he
right.
just doesn't fit the defensive scheme here.
Right.
There have been a lot of guys over the years that didn't. I can remember when the Steelers drafted Ziggy Hood in the first round.
I just brought him up the other day because I was asked that same question.
And people were like, "Well, he doesn't. He's a 4-3 defensive tackle." He was a good.
I always thought he was a square peg in a round hole.
But that
from
was
day
the problem.
From day one, because they had those real wide splits in the Big 12. He was an upfield, had a lot of space to work with. Didn't take on a ton of double teams, but he was. From what I remember, they just won the Super Bowl, and he was
the 32nd pick in the draft.
Right.
Now, in the way the Steelers now play defense,
he'd be more useful now than
he'd
then.
be more useful now.
Sure, as would Graham. Graham would.
Yeah.
LeBeau would never touch Graham.
They want. You're not asking Cam, and that was what kind of changed the way that they looked at that when they had Hayward and Tuitt. They said, "This is silly. We're not going to have these guys just take on double teams for the linebackers to make plays. They can get up the field. Let's let them get up the field."
Yeah, I mean, it used to be like if those two could take up guard center guard blocking, you'll be like, okay, we win the numbers game. Now it's like they can do more than that. I mean, they might be in the backfield with tackles for losses and sacks as opposed to eating up 3 blocks between the two of them.
So they don't do that anymore. So I understand that. Well, the arm length doesn't matter quite as much as it used to.
And at D tackle, I'm not as concerned with some other positions. I mean, I don't want stumpy arms, but if you're super quick, you can sometimes get in on guys.
32-inch arms are 12th percentile.
Right. Like
12th.
Farmer, who was in today, is
35-inch arms.
Oh, he's 35. I don't say I thought he was over 34, but he's 35.
He's got
that's
long
a big
arms.
difference. Big difference.
And particularly, we talk about this with the offensive linemen. A lot of your guards, we're talking about all the offensive tackles in this particular draft.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he's got 33-inch arms. Yeah, well, he's probably going to have to play guard.
Yeah.
That's what you're going to see at guard. You're not going to see these tackles who have 34 or more. No, you're going to see a lot of guards with shorter, and if you can reach them quickly,
you're
going to win the battle.
Now,
if you have to line up on the outside against the tackles, which the guys in a 3-4 defense do at times, you better have the arm length.
That's part of why the length was needed for the Smiths and Kiesels, et cetera, and why Cam was drafted.
And they still do some of it. They still,
right.
It's not like you just thrown that out the window. They still have to line up over the tackles at times.
Yep. Now, I will say that there are some interior D linemen, like every position, that don't utilize their traits well. Like their arms are too long for their body because it takes so long for them to get where they need to be. They don't have the short, quick, punches. So that's one of the reasons I don't hate shorter arms on the interior, but it's a disadvantage.
It's one of the things that makes Cam Hayward.
Absolutely.
When he reaches and gets that arm on the guard or the tackle or whoever it is, and he locks that thing out, they can't reach him.
No, Graham can't do that.
And he's just walking them back into the quarterback.
No.
Because he's so strong and he's got the length advantage on them.
Farmer one day might be able to do that. I mean, it's a rare trait. I mean, not
Harmon
everyone does.
might be able to do that.
Yeah.
These guys
Nolan,
with the longer arms,
right.
Nolan has shorter arms, but they're not 32 inches.
They're not short, right.
They're almost 33 inches, and he can play nose
Grants
tackle.
are above average, right?
I
thought all his dimensions were.
Yeah. But, when I look at Nolan, I think he could play nose tackle if I had to play him there.
Like a Benton. Like it's not he's not Hampton.
It's not the number one thing I'd want to do with him, but.
Yeah. You could have as Cam can, as Benton can, Ogunjobi's lined up on the nose. I mean, it happens.
I'm looking for the lower body strength.
Yeah.
I'm looking.
He's very naturally strong.
Yeah.
Nolan. I mean, he is a powerful person.
Again, we're not saying Mason Graham was a bad football player. Graham's probably going to go in the top 10 somewhere.
Yeah. I'm not even saying he's a worse prospect than those other 3, but he is for my board for the Steelers. Right.
That's what we're building here.
Right.
We're
I think that was lost on people probably. Right.
This is our board for the Steelers.
Right.
None of the edge rushers are on there.
I would say Mike Green's not on our list either. I mean, he's a good player.
He's a good player.
Right.
The Alabama linebackers aren't on there. Jihad Campbell's not on here.
Yeah.
There are players we left off the board purposely because A, We either know that the Steelers aren't going to be interested in that position, or they don't fit the scheme.
Right. I mean, we're drafting for one team in this.
We wouldn't have Booker on this list.
No, absolutely
because
not.
He is
He's not his
in the
own
phone
guard,
booth.
and exactly.
This is what they're looking for: guards who can move,
and it's going to be down the list of priorities.
Yeah,
I mean, there's tons of edge rushers we'd love to have if there was a need. They would have been all over our top 21.
Yeah, I mean, it shouldn't be that hard to understand, but somehow either we have a lot of Michigan fans out there watching the show, and if that's so great, or family members, I don't know.
I mean, everyone just looks at him and he's going to go early. He's a top prospect. Probably right, but that doesn't mean if the Steelers were picking 5, he'd be their choice.
Yeah. Here's the other problem that I have with this. So immediately, not everybody. I mean, if you disagree with our assessment of this, that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
People disagree about stuff all the time.
I can certainly understand the logic of having him in the top 21.
Sure.
Right.
Matt, you've been in draft process rooms.
Mm-hmm.
So I assume there were also disagreements in said rooms.
Lots
of them.
That's what it's all about.
Did anybody ever jump up and said, "You're stupid," or "You don't know what you have no idea what you're talking about. You're dumb."
Right.
That is a stupid take. You're an idiot if you think that.
Right. I mean, again, I was only in
not.
there. I guess not. I only had 1 year, and there were some heated discussions.
Sure.
We can't use that. I don't want to coach that. I don't, et cetera, or I don't think I can. That guy's not smart enough to learn, or I don't want to deal with that. Or,
legitimate discussions.
Right.
And if you come on and say you want to have a discussion about this, and you say, "I think you're wrong about this, and here's why."
Right.
And you give me legitimate reasons why you think I'm wrong. I will sit and think about, okay, maybe you're right about this.
Right. That's kind of what adults do.
That's kind of what adults do. If your immediate take is that you're an idiot, you're wrong about this. No.
Yeah, it's like when my kids were 6 and say you're a dummy poopy head.
And if I then tell you why, and we just went through why we didn't have Mason Graham on our list, and your immediate comeback is that you're still an idiot. You don't know what you're talking about.
Right.
This is a fact. No, that's your opinion.
Right.
Your opinion is not a fact. If I then come back and say this is why and explain to you in a well thought out process why I feel this way about something, your opinion doesn't trump that.
Right.
Come back at me with some facts, and now I'll listen.
Yeah.
And
frankly, he could be the 5th pick in the draft. The Jags go to multiple Pro Bowls. And
great. I hope he does.
I hope he does too. Right. And that may or may not even mean we were wrong, because he may not do that if he was drafted here at 21. Yeah. Maybe he's transcendent and he's Aaron Donald, and it doesn't make a bit of difference. But I think Donald was the 8th or 9th pick in the draft.
He was like 12th.
Okay,
he was right before the Steelers that year.
Okay, and if they would have passed on him, which I bet they would have, that would have been a mistake. But it's still the process. Like he didn't fit the LeBeau defense.
Yeah. Other teams passed on him as well.
Yeah.
It happens.
Right.
Because you look at it and you say, well,
he's small.
He's small.
Or he's an outlier. I mean,
you can find a long list of players with that arm length size that didn't work out.
Right.
For every Aaron Donald, there's 25 guys who didn't work out. For every Geno Atkins, there's 25 guys that didn't.
There's tons of them, right?
That didn't work out because they didn't have the right dimensions.
It's a hard way to live.
It's part of the analytics that go into this.
Yep.
They didn't just pull these numbers out of midair and say, well, no. Years and years of draft just looking at these things.
Oh, there's tons of data here. Right.
The data is all there, and you can say, well, this guy has this guy has that. Well, okay, if we're going to look at them, they're both close. Well, this guy has the proper length and bulk.
It's a better bet.
It's a better bet.
It's a better bet. Yeah, I mean, we can – I think a lot of draft picks are about minimizing risk.
They should be.
A big conversation that people don't have, even in the media, let alone fans talking about it, is, well, how could this be a bad pick? Well, he can't get his arms out. He's not quick enough. He's got a bad knee, whatever it is. But that's a big thing that happens in draft rooms. Well, how could this bite us if we beat, as opposed to let's minimize risk in terms of drafting these dudes?
I mean, we talk about it with the offensive linemen. Last year's first round offensive tackles.
Mm-hmm.
Joe Alt, 34 1/4 inch arms. J.C. Latham, 35 1/8 inch arms. Fashanu, 34 inch arms. Talisi Fuaga, 31 and an eighth. He was the short guy.
Concern, yeah.
Mims, 36 and an eighth.
It's insane.
And Falatanu was 34 and 5/8.
Mm-hmm.
There aren't many of those guys in this particular draft.
No, it doesn't look like any of those guys are going to be guards in the near future.
Right.
Now, maybe Fuaga will bump in at some point, but I would be shocked.
But that's what you're going to be dealing with.
Oh, that's who you're playing against.
That's who you're playing against.
Yeah.
You know, if you're out on the edge a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, even so, I get it. If you want to take Mason Graham and put him over a guard, and that's what you're going to do with him every down, have at it.
Yeah.
But that's not what the Steelers do.
No. Again, on nickel, he'd be useful, and there's a lot of those snaps, but it's still sort of a part-time guy.
It's probably a 40 to 50% guy, and you're going to take a 40. It's the same discussion as taking a guy who can only play nose tackle in the first round.
Mm-hmm. How much value on game day does he provide?
Right.
How much is he out there? How much does he impact the game over the course?
If he can't rush the passer at all, he's a 40% player.
Yeah.
Just what it is.
That's the way the world works, right? I was going to say on that too. And I think they want big people. Not only do they want be big enough to ride the ride, but in this division, you play the Ravens, you play against Mims, and all these teams. I think they want to be even bigger. Like if league average is 320, I want to be 325. We're going to be a little bigger and more physical than the other opponents.
Yeah. No, I agree. So, anyways, we don't hate Mason Graham.
No, right.
He just doesn't necessarily fit the Steelers' defense.
It's kind of like the edge situation.
Yeah.
Like they're great players, but it's not what they need.
It's the same. If we're going to talk about edge guys, and somebody wants to say, well, he's an outside linebacker. Yeah, but he was a 235-pound outside linebacker.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't fit this scheme.
No, what are you going to do with him, right?
And, Matt, it's Tuesday. Steelers had a couple of draft visitors in again today.
Yeah.
Those being Elijah Roberts, the defensive lineman from SMU, and cornerback, kid from Ole Miss, Trey Amos.
Yeah. I like Amos a lot, and he's big. He runs well. He's physical. He plays the ball in the air well. But most importantly, he's a man coverage corner.
Yeah.
I mean, the Steelers, this is going to sound like I'm just crushing Jackson, and in a way I am. But I think he really handicapped what they could do, especially once injuries set in. And
I think the injuries were a big part of it. Yeah.
That they played so much cover 3, pretty static shell, Minka in the middle, Porter, Jackson, and they were good at it. I mean, like, people just remember the end. I mean, they were a pretty darn good defense for much of the year. That I think they were a little handcuffed with how much man coverage they could play. You just come down and bang. And frankly, I think that can lead to more sacks. I mean, it can lead to more blitzing. That if you have one corner that you don't trust, and that's where I'm going here with Jackson, who's no longer a Steeler, obviously, and I think they like the new guys better, you can get a lot more aggressive. You can do a lot more things. And the fact that they have Amos in makes me think that clearly they recognize that. And Slay's a man coverage corner.
Right.
I mean, they can do everything. But and still, it's only like 45%. It's not going to play man 99%,
And just from the looks of things, they're covering their bases with a lot of guys who are in that first-round mix.
Yeah. Like, I wonder if they would be considered at 21, or is that also telling us we might not pick at 21?
Or, you're looking at this going, okay, what if worst case scenario happens? Somebody asked me on a message or on Twitter today, what happens if all the top 4 defensive tackles are all gone and you're at 21 and you can't move back and you got to pick somebody?
Right. Back to our top 21 list, which maybe Amos should have been on.
Maybe,
I mean, you could write the story where he could be one of those guys in the mix if things go wrong.
But I think if in that vein, again, with our top 21 list, if all those defensive tackles are gone,
James go to the next group.
Somebody else is going to be available.
You do the math. I mean, there's only 20 people that are going to get picked.
Because there's going to be we just did another mock draft for Steelers.com today, and I think I had 3 or 4 edge rushers in my top.
You would have gone early, which I think is very possible. I thought that was a good way of looking at it. Yeah.
Certainly, there's going to be 4 or 5 edge rushers gone by the time the Steelers pick at 21.
So everyone on the planet knows quarterback's the most premium position.
Yeah.
I think pure offensive tackles are next But it's a conversation.
Yeah.
I mean, some people will say it's edge guys. Give me Bosa, give me Watt,
Look at who the highest paid defensive players
right.
are all edge rushers.
Exactly,
They're guys that sack the quarterback.
Yep. The thing is that why I put tackles over that is because Dan Moore.
They stopped them from
that's
sacking the quarterback.
But the not Tier 1 guys are getting paid so heavily. And the Tier 1 guys just get whatever they want to. But anyway, that's splitting hairs. So last year's draft was loaded with offensive tackles, and they went really fast. Well, just because there's a lot of them doesn't mean that they're any less of a premium. That's where I'm going with edge.
Everybody knows this stuff going. They knew this a year ago.
Yeah.
Like looking at this going, well, next year's, because they do. You don't scout the sophomores and juniors,
but the dude that walks into Auburn knows that Auburn's got a young kid.
Right.
I mean, obviously
so you're
now
talking
there's
about
transfers and things that can mess it up.
I'm sure they put together a board before the season starts and say, okay, this looks like a really good edge draft.
Yeah. I mean, I think they say things like, boy, my area is really loaded with defensive tackles and guards next year. It's subject to change, but keep that in mind. You know, it's not a Bible. It's not
guys rise, guys fall,
injuries, transfers.
Like we talk about the quarterback stuff.
Right.
You know, you just don't know, but you know that by mid-season, well, this is going to be a really good edge draft, or like last year, this is going to be a really good tackle draft.
So what I was saying about tackles is, just because there was a lot of them in the first round last year doesn't make it any less of a premium position or less of a need across the league. Yeah. So I was thinking that whenever we were going through your mock today, I'm like, just because there's a lot doesn't mean people are going to pass on them. The Bears, the Bengals, et cetera, et cetera.
You need one, you need one.
You need one. The Eagles just won a Super Bowl based on that theory, so they're going to be as in demand philosophically as much as ever. There might be 2 of them off the board that we didn't even expect in the top 20. You know what I mean? There might be a real run on them.
Yeah, so, I mean, that's something to keep an eye on. And if that happens, then,
then someone's right.
You're probably getting a defensive tackle. Although the defensive tackles, the same thing could happen. This is a deep defensive tackle draft, and maybe
it's not far off the premium position list.
Yeah.
I mean, it might even be right behind, especially if you can rush the passer.
I don't know that there's as many first-round guys as there are edge rushers.
Right.
That's the difference.
I could see waiting on D tackle easier than waiting on Michael Williams or Green or the Boston College dude, whoever.
And one of the things that we do in our mock drafts is trade down. It sounds good in theory.
Yeah,
we want to trade down. Somebody has to want to come up.
Yeah.
You can't just hold a gun to somebody and say, hey, give me pick 25 for pick 21, and we want your third rounder.
We love our mocks and people like them, but it's not like you're going to have, we have 5 trade offers. We'll just tell the Giants no, we don't like them. We'll just tell the Ravens
doesn't work
no,
that way in reality.
We don't work with them. That's not really how it works. There might be no one calling.
Right.
I mean, you got 15
you
minutes
can
and wait for
it. And, the phone calls to other teams, really, laying the groundwork to some of this stuff happens now.
Oh, yeah.
With these 2 weeks left in the draft, you start
I'm sure
setting your draft board and okay, here's what we like. Okay, what if again, you get your top 21 and then who's interested in moving around? Who would be somebody would be interested in coming up to get?
This is highly hypothetical because I don't think the Steelers are in this situation at all. But if they were really interested in getting in the 8 to 11 range, well, at the owners' meetings, I bet Omar would pull the 8th GM, the 9th GM, the 10th GM, and be like,
how married are you to that pick?
Yeah, right. I mean, if it doesn't go your way and your guy isn't sitting there, I'm going to call you the way, but keep us in mind first.
And I think in this year's draft in particular, I know when we talk about it and we do the thing on ESPN that is that Matt Miller that puts that together?
That are first-round picks.
The first-round pick guys. Quite frankly,
that number might be low.
It might be 5.
That's what I say. Like, his number might be high.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not sure any safety counts. I'm not sure once you start getting past the top, I'm not sure any corner count. I mean,
honestly, I think after you get past the 5 or 6 players, however many it is, the next 50 to 60 players are all going to have similar grades.
Yeah.
And it's going to be based on need, which is, again, why I thought edge rushers. Everybody needs them.
I remember when we did our 21 the other day, and I went out and got coffee, and I started thinking about last year's class. And then I went home and just pulled up the first round of the 2024 draft, 1 year ago. And I'm trying to ignore what they did in their rookie seasons, what I thought of them this time last year. There's so many guys I would take ahead of the fifth guy on our board at 21. I mean, so many. Yeah. It's an enormous
Not that they
number.
won't be good players.
No, right.
There'll be good players that come out of this draft. It's just going to be
like Quinyon Mitchell went deep in the 20s.
Yeah,
and he's a first-round pick any year to me. And I thought
he'd be a top 10 pick this year.
And maybe higher. You know what I mean? Like, Hunter's the only corner you'd think is clearly ahead of him because Hunter's weird, you know?
Yeah. Elijah Roberts, the other guy who came in today, is a guy we haven't talked about a ton out of SMU. 6'4", 285.
Yeah.
But you know what he has?
He has the length, huh?
33 and 5/8 inch arms.
I thought he had long
he's
arms,
got the arms. He's got 10 1/4 inch hands. That helps you with your heavy hand usage.
I do need to watch more of him. We haven't talked about him a lot. I haven't studied him super in depth, but I've seen him and read about him and watched a little bit. I think he could use 10 pounds.
He was a really good tester, though, too.
Yeah,
he ran a 4.78 at the combine.
That's the two things I was really going to say is there's a lot of moldable clay there to work with, especially if you don't need him now, and he wouldn't be your first-round pick.
No,
right.
I mean, he's more of a fourth or fifth-round pick.
Yeah, he could be a more athletic Logan Lee rookie season, whatever, and I'd like to put 10 pounds on him, Yeah. But all those things aren't that hard to do.
It's not that hard to do.
No, right. And I don't know what they asked him to play at or how big he can get but he has length.
And typically most guys come into the combine a little bit lighter than
to run and
what you would normally be. But
it sounds crazy, but they don't look good in their underwear too. You don't want to have a little extra fat on them and stuff. They're like, wow, that's he stands out.
You look like a jiggly puff.
Right.
But so again, another mid-round defensive lineman
that would fit in.
Yeah. This draft is loaded with those kind of guys, and so we'll see where that goes. But it's such an interesting draft. This is the latest that we've gotten into the process that every team has still had their first-round pick since 1993.
Really? That doesn't surprise me at all.
And so, I'm like, what was that 93 draft like? It changed 5 days before the draft when the Chiefs.
So there was a pre-draft
trade.
The
Chiefs sent their first-round pick to the 49ers for Joe Montana.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Imagine that, a team going out to get a
veteran quarterback that had some injuries and all-time great and
So I just went back and looked at that draft. Drew Bledsoe was the number one overall pick.
Rick Meyer. That's the bettest draft then,
Rick
I guess.
Meyer was 2.
Okay. Is that Jerome's draft?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
He went 10th overall. Jerome Bettis does not go 10th overall in today's NFL.
No. I mean, he might not even be a first-round pick.
Yeah.
But I think he ran well, and he's a better athlete than he looks.
Yeah. But Rick Meyer was 2. Garrison Hurst 3.
Mm-hmm. He doesn't go 3rd.
And they traded up to go get him. The Cardinals and Jets swapped picks there. So the Jets moved up a spot, or the Cardinals moved up a spot with the Jets to get Garrison Hurst. The Jets then took Marvin Jones at 4.
The linebacker, okay.
The Bengals took John Copeland at 5. At 6, the Buccaneers took Eric Curry. At 7, the Bears took Curtis Conway. At 8, the Saints took Willie Roaf.
Wow.
Your first offensive tackle, who wound up being a Hall of Famer.
He's basically the best player in that draft.
Right. The Giants forfeited their pick because they made a supplemental pick, taking Dave Brown in 92.
That's crazy. People probably don't even know how the supplemental draft works, but
nobody does it anymore.
Nobody does it anymore, right? Because if you're in a bad situation, you just transfer out or move.
Yeah.
You don't get stuck academically ineligible or whatever. Like Chris Carter was a supplemental pick.
Right.
Wow.
Lincoln Kennedy went 9 to the Falcons.
Okay.
So your second offensive tackle. Then Bettis went 10 to the Rams.
Wow. Okay. That's interesting, though. I mean, do you think – I mean, I know you don't know the answer, but I'm kind of betting there won't – that when the draft opens, when the opening bell rings on Thursday night, all 32 will have their picks. It won't hold up for the night, but I don't know that there's going to be a pre-draft move.
Yeah,
going.
Because to get
I don't know where you can't
to
get
make
to
a
one.
trade, you're going to get a quarterback.
Right. I mean, you can't get to 1.
Yeah, and I think could somebody want to move up to 2?
Maybe. Are those guys open for getting out of there either?
Yeah. I mean,
I don't know.
The problem then becomes, you start looking at those teams that are in the top 10. The Titans, okay, they're in the quarterback market. They're going to take Cam
I think
Ward.
they're done, right.
Cleveland is in the quarterback market, but it doesn't seem like they're interested in Shedeur Sanders as much anymore.
Not a two.
Not a two.
I think like the Giants and Browns could still very much be in the quarterback market after they get their stud blue chip guy.
Yeah,
you know, and if it falls well and I can get up there and maybe I even have to forfeit next year's first, I get Dart, I get Sanders, okay, and see how the chips fall.
The Giants we just mentioned, the Patriots aren't making a move up to get a quarterback.
They're not going up.
No.
I bet they would gladly go down now that it looks like the top three are off the board.
The Jaguars aren't going to be in the market for a quarterback.
Not going up, no.
The Raiders could be.
And is anyone trading up for Sanders?
No.
I mean, you're not trading to 2 or 3 to get Sanders.
No, I don't think so. Not what you're going to have to give up.
I could see someone trading to 8 to get ahead of the Saints.
Sure.
If you're 12 or 13.
Yeah.
Or, you know.
But the Raiders aren't in that market.
No, I don't think so.
The Jets could be in that market.
Maybe they would take him at their pick.
Yeah.
I don't know that they would be aggressive to get the – would they go to 4? Like, if I'm the Patriots, I'd love the Jets or Saints or someone like that to call me. Yeah. I'll still take Membo or Campbell or even Ted McMillan or whatever. You're going to get somebody you need.
The Panthers aren't making a move for a quarterback.
No.
The Saints could, but they're more than a quarterback away. I don't think they want to trade up to go do it.
And they don't take quarterbacks in the first round ever.
Ever.
You know, right.
Yeah, they haven't done it since Archie Manning.
Right. I mean, are they going to trade Carr?
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's drying up unless Rodgers retires.
The Bears aren't trading up for a quarterback.
No.
The 49ers aren't trading up for a quarterback.
Unless they something weird and they trade Purdy, but there's no one buying on these other guys now.
The Cowboys aren't moving up for a quarterback.
No. I mean, there were 6 taken in the first round. That's 6 bad teams that takes them out of the quarterback market.
The Dolphins not moving up for a quarterback.
No.
The Colts, they're not moving up again for a quarterback.
Year.
Yeah.
You just paid Jones. You're going to live with it, and maybe next year you're back in the market.
The Falcons, nope.
No, they said that.
The Cardinals, nope.
No.
The Bengals, no.
That's why everyone links them to the Steelers.
Yeah. The Seahawks, I don't think they would move up to get one, but they could take one.
They should take one.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe they like Howell more than we think. Not as a long-term starter, but I mean, I'm just saying Howell versus Howard or McCord or somebody or Shuck, maybe they like him better than those guys.
Yeah.
But they could be round 2 trade up for Dart. I mean, they got a lot of extra picks too.
Yeah.
Darnold's really only on a 1-year deal.
It's really a 1 year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Tampa Bay's
same with Fields.
Yeah, Tampa Bay's not moving up or doing anything for a quarterback.
They might be wise to take one in the 3rd round, but I mean,
Denver's not going to do it.
No.
So I mean,
it doesn't leave much. The playoff teams aren't into it.
There just aren't that many landing spots or teams that are going to be super aggressive to go up and get a quarterback.
See, I think that factors.
That's where the trades come in.
I think that factors in the Browns and Giants' decision to not take Sanders, because who are we really fighting after the 4th pick in the draft to go get Sanders when he starts to fall a little? And fall's not even the right word. He's fallen to where he should go. Or
right.
Dart.
Yeah.
Or, like. Teams are going to be anxious to go back. Browns have a ton of picks. Giants are desperate. They could move next year's first to get to 15 overall or something like that and leave this draft with Hunter and Sanders.
Yeah.
I mean, that's possible. So if you're in their shoes, if we really diagnosed the Browns and Giants drafts like we do the Steelers, I think you're happy to take the blue chip dude. And then let's try to – now we're wheeling and dealing.
Yeah, now you can go do something because you've got the stud who –
You got the no-brainer, right. That's maybe a franchise changer type guy, and then we still might get our quarterback.
Would you be open for business in trading with the Browns for the first overall pick in the 2nd round for them to move up to 21 and take a quarterback?
Yes, because I don't like the quarterbacks. I want to play against them. Which might bring us
kind of in the same boat, yeah.
Like, I get to play against Shedeur Sanders, and you guys can have a history of screwing him up, or Dart, or... If it's one of those two, I will gladly pay against them, and I have no problem picking 33.
Yeah.
That's not a bad place to be.
Not at all.
I mean, because you could also move back up to 27 if the D tackles are falling like crazy. It doesn't mean you're stuck at 33.
Yeah.
Maybe you're the trade-up team.
Because you're probably going to get
a lot.
You
get a haul, yeah.
So
I actually did make a trade with them on Pro Football Focus, and I was just curious, like, what do you get when you move to the real beginning of the 2nd round? And it was a haul. I mean, there was a lot of stuff. It was decent. There was a day 2 pick next year. It was a good, obviously the 2nd rounder, obviously the 3rd. It's like, man, I got a lot of stuff in my fingertips here, and maybe I still get Nolan or Harmon or whatever,
Yeah, right.
It's not bad.
No, it's not the worst thing in the world. And again, in this draft, it's all going to be team need. It's all going to be about team need. Everybody says take the best player available.
I just think the Giants and Browns are so key after they make their pick.
Yeah.
And the Saints the Saints are super unpredictable. They're a trade-up team all the time.
Yeah.
It's always Mardi Gras.
Dun 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 dun. Dun, 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 dun. Welcome back to The Drive. I am Dale Lolley. He is Matt Williamson. And that music cues you in.
I feel a disturbance
to our
in
visitor.
the force.
There's a disturbance in the force as the Dean of Doom, the Lord of living in his spheres, and the Emperor of Steelers football coverage. Bob Labriola joins us here on the Justin Miller Hotline. How you doing, Labs?
Pretty good, guys. How you all?
Fantastic.
Not too bad.
Fantastic.
Bob, we're now 2 weeks out from the draft. Are you starting to feel the buzz, or are you ready for this whole thing to be over?
Well, I'm looking forward to it. I always do. I don't know that I have a feel for how it's going to go. Starting with who the Steelers are going to pick 21st, and then what's going to happen in the first 20 picks. I can't remember the last time there was a draft where there wasn't a, oh my God pick, close to the top of the first round. And, again, like I said, look forward to it. I want to see how it unfolds, hoping for the best. And, I just hope that, we don't set any records in terms of length, 4 hours and 30 minutes, those kind of things. Let me ask you guys, you think there's going to be a lot of trades in the first round?
I was just writing about that last night, Bob, for my 5 for Friday. Just a little
side
note there. Yeah. This is the latest that we've gone into, or the closest that we've gotten to a draft with all the teams still owning their own spots since 1993. And so I went back and looked at that 93 draft. Things changed 5 days before the draft because Joe Montana got traded to the Kansas City Chiefs, and that was a first-round draft pick, so that messed up the order a little bit. But there were still 11 draft picks traded in the first round, including that Montana. So there was still some movement because, you can, as much as you want to talk about, best player available and all that stuff, teams still draft for need, and it's always the best player available at a position of need.
Oh, of course.
And so, if you see a run on a certain position and you have a guy that's rated that highly, maybe you move.
Yeah, and maybe teams are also waiting to make sure that the guy that they're targeting in their trade-up is there for them.
Yeah.
Before they make any deals. Because, you could think, I'm going to trade up to the third spot, to the Giants spot, and I'll get player X. But, that doesn't mean that he's not picked first, or somebody doesn't, even if you know what the Browns are going to do, somebody could jump into that spot. So, I think the teams are, in terms of maybe waiting to pull the trigger on some of these trades, teams are being, purposeful. And they want who they want maybe before they make a trade, and they want to make sure he's there.
I think another aspect of it is the salary cap keeps going up, and the league is so profitable right now that the Titans aren't up against it and have to trade A.J. Brown, or the Chiefs aren't trading Tyreek Hill. There weren't a lot of big-time players to trade your first-round pick for because these teams have the money to pay them now.
Yeah, and the other, part of that is, the cap going up, is that we didn't see any big names cut on March, opening of the league year day. A lot of times you'll see.
Well, there's that Rodgers character. I don't know if you've heard about him.
Do you think that was? You think that move was salary cap or performance?
I think it's all the above.
Well, But I don't think the Jets did that strictly to become cap compliant.
No.
I
just think they're doing things differently.
I was speaking specifically of those
big cap cut
compliant
guys.
cuts.
Yeah, we didn't have to see any of that this year, and you saw a lot of teams re-sign their own. In the hours before free agency began.
A lot of money floating around out there.
Which is why, to me, Bob, and this wasn't a great free agent crop. It just wasn't.
I think they're going to get worse and worse because teams can keep them, right?
But that's why I think, and we'll see if you agree with me on this one, maybe the most significant move that was made of a guy changing teams and a weapon, a skill position player, was the Steelers acquiring DK Metcalf.
Mm-hmm.
I got to be honest. That was a big move. Certainly, marquee kind of. It was a trade. And then the big contract came right on the heels of that. But I have to be honest. I'm not well versed enough in what was going on league wide to certainly, say unequivocally that was the, top of the charts move of this free agency. But certainly, it was a significant one, a historic one in terms of the Steelers franchise, in that the amount of money that closely followed the trade, to get DK Metcalf extended. But maybe I just think that with the cap going up continuously, teams are also able. You can franchise guys without, a lot of pain, because when you franchise tag a guy, if he would show up the, 15 minutes after you and, the franchise tag is applied and sign that, that's guaranteed money and it goes right on your cap.
You're on the hook,
right
yeah.
then.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So, the T. Higgins thing is an example. I don't think the Bengals had much financial fear let me say this, salary cap financial fear in making that move and tagging him. And then, it bought him some time, and then they worked out the long-term deals with him and Jamar Chase to keep Joe Burrow happy, which, I think is a smart move by the Bengals because to me he is, I've told you guys this before. I without doubt, in my opinion, he's the best quarterback in the AFC North. And, if I had my pick of anyone in the AFC, I'd take him. Now, I'm not saying that to run down Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson. I'm just saying my personal likes. I like the way he plays. I like the way he leads. And
you take him over the guy in Kansas City?
Me personally, yes. I'm not a big, Jake from State Farm. He whines too much for me. He just does. And I'm not saying he's not a great player, because he is. And I just like Burrow. If it was my team, I owned the franchise, or I was the head coach, or whatever, I just like the way he plays and he leads. He seems to be a fairly low maintenance superstar at that position too, which is not necessarily the norm anymore either.
So, Labs, the Steelers had Omarion Hampton in today for a visit. Widely regarded first-round pick, probably running back, North Carolina, in what looks like a really, really stacked running back class. How much are you prioritizing that position for the Steelers Thursday, Friday, Saturday draft?
I think they need to get one for sure.
Okay, yeah.
And I don't know that, here's the thing. If you're going to pick a running back in the first round, I don't think you open the season with Jaylen Warren as the starter.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I mean, I don't think that that's what you would want to do. If you are content to open the season with Jaylen Warren as the starter, I think you can get yourself a running back later than the 21st overall pick, and do yourself very well at that position. So, that's the thing. I mean, the Steelers tendered him as a restricted free agent with a second-round number, meaning if, he would present an offer sheet and the Steelers decided not to match, they would get a second-round pick. And I think that, more significant than that way of looking at it is I don't think there's any teams that are going to go out there and think, I'm willing to give up a second-round pick for Jaylen Warren.
Right.
Not in this, like Matt, you were just talking about the depth and the talent at that position in this upcoming draft. So
yeah, he's not going anywhere.
Right.
Yeah.
So, like I said, I think you've seen, from the Steelers' standpoint, you've seen things from Jaylen Warren in terms of his ability to run the ball. He's a good enough receiver, a very willing and effective blocker. And so, again, I don't. That's the reason I don't pick up running back number one, because I think that I like him as a player, and I'm not going to relegate him to, backup status by picking a running back number one. Not now, anyway.
Yeah, I hear you with that. The thing that gets me is a lot of people, because he wasn't as big as Najee Harris, look at Jaylen Warren. Well, he's a little back. He's 215, 220 pounds. He's not a small running back by any standard. He's short, but he's not small.
He doesn't go down easily.
Right, and, I don't know that it's necessary, okay, Najee Harris was bigger, and I'm just, playing along this train of thought. That doesn't mean that you have to pack everybody in, tight in short yardage situations either.
Right.
I mean, a lot of times guys are most effective in short yardage when you spread the defense out and let him pick his spot, give him the ball, and let him, run the daylight, so to speak, or, whatever. I don't know what the size factor, how that's important necessarily, with the exception of this, durability. And I don't think that there's any evidence that Jaylen Warren is a China doll. He's not a guy who's often injured. And as I said, he's not afraid to step up and stick his face in the chest of a blitzing linebacker if that's necessary, which I admire. So, I don't know what the size factor has to do with it. If you're asking me, if you're going to look for a running back based on a specific skill, speed, I'd go for that. You want to add a fast breakaway, big play kind of guy with speed, that to me is something I'd be willing to entertain. I'm still not saying I'm doing that first round,
right.
But in terms of a specific skill that you don't have at that position, speed. Now, I don't know who that is.
Well, there's lots of guys in this draft. This was the fastest running back group in combine history this year. Their average 40 time was 4.47.
Several of them have been in town.
Yeah, these guys can all fly. I mean, the outliers are the 4.6 guys.
And that's nice, but playing speed and track speed are sometimes two different things. So
I hear you.
But I'm talking about, if you want to add something that you don't have, to me it would be someone who can be a big play running back based on using his speed, hit a seam, Willie Parker-ish kind of guy. So that's the way I look at that position.
So, Labs, I assume you're in the loop about Pat McAfee's got a show tonight. Do we think we got any news brewing on a quarterback tonight? Big news coming?
Not a McAfee fan. I mean, God bless him for turning,
an illustrious punting career.
Is a run-of-the-mill talk show into a multi-million-dollar enterprise.
I mean, that's what we're doing here.
Yeah, right. If you guys were making that kind of cash, you would be wasting your time talking to me. And he's a punter, for goodness sakes. I mean, is there a more nondescript, member of a 53-man roster.
Yes, the long snapper.
Yeah, okay. But at least, okay, I'll give you that. But anyway, that was always my theory about why Bill Cowher hated punters.
Yeah, they should never be seen or heard. Because if you see him, you're giving the ball up, and if you hear anything from him, I don't want to hear anything from the punter.
Right. Inherently, when you have to use the punter, it signals some sort of failure.
Yes.
Because like you said, you're giving the ball up, and I would imagine that honks off, a head coach just, as a matter of course. And as you just mentioned, if you have to hear from him, or he shanks it, or, kicks it through the end zone, or, does something that you would rather he didn't do in that particular circumstance, then I think that would just kind of fan the flames of discontent, so to speak.
Bob, one last thing for you. We've been talking a lot this week about arm length and things of that nature as it pertains to particularly the defensive linemen, because that's what we're kind of centered in on here in recent weeks. And we did our top 21 players for the Steelers because they have 21. They're picking at 21. And so we had our 21 players that we would take at 21 if we were drafting for the Steelers. And we didn't include Mason Graham from Michigan, who is pretty much the consensus number one defensive tackle in this draft, because he has 32-inch arms. And he's not a nose tackle, and he's probably he doesn't have the length to play defensive end in the Steelers 3-4 defense. And we've gotten a lot of pushback on that, but I'm sticking to my guns on this. You got to be big enough to ride the ride if you're going to be a 3-4 defensive end in this defense. I'm not saying you have to look like Stephon Tuitt, but it sure as hell doesn't hurt.
Yeah, it'd be nice if you do.
Yeah, I'm not going to disagree. I will be honest, though, I don't know nearly enough about, defensive line technique and the way what the Steelers require in terms of technique from their defensive linemen to make any judgment on arm length. I'm not trying to duck the question. Mm-hmm. I'm going to plead ignorance because I don't know what that means. What I have said, though, I believe that you cannot have a defensive lineman who is one-dimensional anymore, because if he can't stop the run when he's on the field, that's what the offense will do. If he can't rush the passer when he's on the field, that's what the offense is going to do. And there are no more rules about when you run the ball, what areas of the field you run the ball, what downs you run the ball. That doesn't exist anymore. Teams are not afraid to start 1st and 10 at their own 1-yard line. They'll come out and spread you out and throw the ball all over the field. Whereas, when Casey Hampton was a player, you pretty much could depend on something off tackle. So, as I said, that those rules are gone. Teams, offenses have no shame, no conscience about doing things outside the old traditional, mindset. And so I just think that if you're looking for top of the depth chart defensive linemen now, they have to be able to do both, because you cannot be running them on and off the field in situations. Because even if you could do that, even if the offense will allow you to do that by not using pace, they're just not. They're not going to cooperate with their play calls.
Yeah, absolutely. The Aaron Rodgerses of the world will make sure that guy stays on the field.
Oh yeah,
that's what they do.
Or you just don't.
Or never gets on.
Right, never gets on. Exactly.
Bob, we will let you go. Get back to your beautiful day of stewing and doing whatever it is you do on a beautiful day outside. You should probably get outside and not shovel snow.
Cut the grass.
Now you got to cut the grass. There you go.
Yeah, that's coming soon.
I can't believe you don't make Mary Ann do any of this stuff.
No, I mean, there's services for that kind of stuff.
Okay, there you go. There you go. That makes more sense. Our guest has been Bob Labriola, editor of Steelers Digest and Steelers.com, the Dean of Doom, the Lord of Living in His Fears, the Emperor of Steelers coverage. So let's go 5 bold predictions.
I have to come up with 5?
I'm not saying you don't have to come up with 5.
Okay.
We're going to come up with 5.
Okay.
You can start.
Okay.
And then we'll go to me, and I'll make a bold prediction, and then you make a bold prediction.
Draft stuff you're talking about?
Yeah, for the first round of this draft. In the year 2000.
I wanted to say something about the quarterbacks and that they're going to go higher than you think in terms of – okay, I'm going to say Sanders goes before the Saints pick.
Okay.
Because, I mean, that's obviously a potential landing spot. Something happens. I don't know where. I don't know how.
Where I could see the Jets taking him.
Yeah,
that.
That could be part of it. Dart isn't available when the Steelers pick. And Milrose not lasting too long in the green room on Thursday or on Friday.
Okay.
I mean, I don't think that's too bold, but quarterbacks just go.
Okay.
Yeah.
I am going to go out on a limb and say that 3 tight ends go in the first round.
Wow. Do you think it's Taylor or Roy?
I think Taylor goes. I could see Kansas City
I
liking
said
Taylor
Chiefs
a
are
lot.
so sneaky, and I think there's a really good chance Dallas Goedert gets traded. So if you move, I mean, at 31-32, good teams, a plug-and-play son of a Hall of Famer. Okay.
And you start looking at Kansas City's pass catchers, and you're going,
Yeah.
But if you could get, hey, we can replace Travis Kelce eventually with this kid. Now you're talking.
The couple guys that they've taken cracks on aren't going to be it.
Yeah, they're just dudes.
They've been 4th, 5th round.
That kid has a chance to be a real star.
Yeah. No, I'm a big fan. And he would help you win a Super Bowl this year, too.
Right.
You know? I want to do something about when the third receiver comes off the board.
Okay.
I think it might be a while. And I'm not even sure Golden and Tet go super high. But I don't think a third one goes in the first round. And I bet he slips out of the top 40,
So
maybe?
2 receivers in the first round.
I think that's kind of a bold prediction in itself. And it could be a wait after.
Okay.
I just don't think anyone's super enamored with the receiver group.
I am going to say that half of the first round, so 16 picks in the first round, will be guys that rush the passer.
Okay.
Half of the first round.
I bet we could come up.
There's only we're looking at 4 defensive tackles.
Right.
Everybody else is going to be edge rusher or defensive end, and I think they're going to be a premium.
Do you think? I think
I'm
we
saying
know.
12 of those guys are going to go in the first round.
We talked to no end about the D tackles. I mean, the 4 you're referring to, I think everybody knows.
Yeah.
You know? Do you think they all go in round 1?
I think they end up going.
I think so
one.
too. I mean, I think Buffalo. I mean, we talked about a tight end for the Eagles, but the Eagles, if Harmon's there or Nolan's there, they're going to say thanks.
I think you could. By the time we get to the middle of the first round, you could be looking at 8 or 9, 10 edge rushers.
Edge rushers, all the Michael Williams and those type of dudes.
There could be a huge run on those, and in the top 20, I think well over half of those guys are edge guys.
Wow. It's hard to do.
It's hard to do, but I think there's going to – I mean, you start looking at the team needs in that group.
Everybody could use one.
Everybody could use one.
Everybody could use one, yeah.
Whether it's an end, whether it's an edge rusher, whether it's a defensive tackle.
Right. I have a hard time coming with something else. What do you think about the running backs? There's a handful of running back needy teams. There's a lot of good ones. They're pretty safe.
I think Genty's the only one that goes in round 1.
Really? See, I was sitting here thinking along the same lines, but from a broader perspective of there's going to be fewer taken in the top 50 than we really think.
Is Omarion Hampton, as good as he is, I think
he's a good player.
I think he's a really good prospect. Is he better than Nick Chubb was as a prospect coming out?
No.
Nick Chubb went to the top of round 2.
The problem with Chubb was nothing in the passing game. But
okay,
but he was. I mean, that was the knock. That's why he was not a first round.
I hear you.
But he was an early 2. Yeah, I think that adds up.
I can see that happening in this draft because it's so deep.
That's the thing. I think,
and I can see a run on him in round 2.
Okay. I say, when do you think they start coming off the board? Maybe round 2 is when pretty heavy, but it wouldn't shock me if even like a Judkins lasts to early 3.
Yeah, I could definitely see that.
And like the Neals are going in 5.
Yeah.
Scatabo going in 5. Like everyone even
Everybody
around
wants to get all the other stuff.
Things.
Again, you want to get I got to get an edge rusher.
Right.
I got to get an edge rusher. Running back or edge rusher. Well, the running backs are really deep. I can get a guy in the round 5 who's going to come in and help. I'm not looking for a bell cow. I just want a guy that can come in and help.
Good, yeah.
But I can start this edge rusher.
Most of our mocks that we do that I'm happiest with is when we don't do a top 50 pick at running back or so, And I like Hampton and I like Judkins and all those guys, but usually it's like, I wish we were better at the other spots than as opposed to running back.
Yeah.
So I think most teams will look at it that way.
That's 5.
That's 5. Okay.
There you go. We came up with the last one together because I was
about to say you made me do 3. And
I was going to go running back. I was going to say something about the running backs, and then I said one running back in the first round.
All right, real quick, your tight end one has my wheels turning. Where do you think the top 4 go? Do you think they all go in like the top 40? I think there's going to be a really long wait for 5.
Yeah, I think so. I think that we could see 4 in the top 40.
I think if you want one, you better grab one of those 4.
Yeah.
And then otherwise, we didn't get one and we got shut out. We'll take Ferguson in the 4th or something. Yeah.
So,
yeah. Okay.
3 tight ends. And remember, I said 3 tight ends in the top.
I don't think that's insane.
First round.
Those 2 Super Bowl teams are hanging around out there.
Yeah. I think Kansas City could definitely take one.
Right.
They could look at that offense. They could get shut out on the offensive tackles and just go, you know what?
They might be like, it's okay. We just spent money on them.
We'll take Grant at the end of round 2.
Yeah. Right. Or a guard.
I mean,
they have money invested in tackles. Their left guard could be a second rounder.
So take the pass catcher, and he makes Patrick Mahomes' life easier.
And again, it's kind of like the Cam Hayward thing. Like, who's better to learn from?
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Put a D tackle with Cam. Right. And put a tight end.
Have this Hall of Famer teach this son of a Hall of Famer and nephew of a Hall of Famer.
Walk around and do what he does. Right.
Except date Taylor Swift.
That might be a little problem, too. I don't think that's in the cards, but right.
You threw out there the other day about trading to go get Jalen Milroe, and you said the potential
be aggressive and right
potential of taking him in the first round, all that stuff, and people panned it. Let's say in this scenario, you did take Derek Harmon in the first round.
Okay, you're pretty comfortable with your D line at that point.
Now you're feeling better about it, or you took Kenneth Grant, or you took Walter. One of those guys.
One of those 3. You stuck and picked at 21.
And then you see this happen with the quarterbacks, and let's say the Giants didn't trade up.
Okay, day 1's done, and Milroe's still on the clock.
Yeah.
Let's say that. Okay. And let's say the Browns made that move. They went up against Sanders. Dart's gone.
It's at the end of the first round, and you think the Giants might be interested in Jalen Milroe. Would you trade into the first round to go get him after getting your defensive tackle? I
have to get my D tackle first no matter what. And
I think that's where the disconnect was. You were talking about, if you like him in the first round, you take him in the first round. Okay, then you're not getting anything else.
I know. And really the best way to walk out of this with Milroe and a big-time D tackle is you almost have to trade back from 21, at least somewhere. Because to get from what's their pick in the third round?
83.
Okay. To get to 83 to 33, that's next year's first. I mean, easily. Yeah, I mean, and maybe more. I mean, that's the thing is if he starts slipping through the second round, I'm on the phone a lot. Maybe offering next year's second.
It's essentially what It's essentially
assuming you love him.
It's what the Ravens did to go get Lamar Jackson.
Right. I don't remember where they came from.
The pick was 32.
Right.
Their initial pick was at like 25.
I was going to say, I assume they were in the early 20s of round 2.
So you're looking at
but they only moved up 20 spots. They didn't move up 50.
So I'll call it was the 2018
the problem is not having the second
NFL draft. It was 18, right? Yeah.
You would have the trades in there? Like what they gave up to get Lamar?
And where they were initially drafting it. So
because Hurst was like 22 or something.
I think he's like 25.
Okay.
Maybe that was just his age.
Maybe. He wishes.
So, and they took Hurst, 25. Now, that was from Tennessee. Did they move down? Yeah.
Maybe they got more picks.
So Buffalo got pick 16 from Baltimore. And then
it's always hard to find draft trades years later, like what they gave up and all that.
And then 22 was Tennessee's pick from Kansas City via Buffalo and Baltimore.
We don't know what pick they earned, where they started in round.
Well, I can. So the Ravens in 2017.
I mean, we don't even know that answer. If we just Googled the Lamar Jackson trade, they would tell you.
Yeah, I just want to. So the Ravens that year were 9-7.
Okay.
In 2017,
so they were picking early 20s.
That was probably their somewhere in that mid-round. 16 sounds about right.
Yeah,
and they traded back, and they moved back. Yeah, they moved back to 25. I'm assuming they picked some stuff up. And then they moved up to 32 from Philadelphia.
Yeah, I just pulled up the trade here.
Okay.
They traded, in order to move up, the Ravens sent 52, 125, and next year's second for 32 and 132. So 125 and 132 really don't matter.
Right.
So they basically went from 52 to 32 with a future second.
Yeah.
I'm interested in that.
Yeah.
I mean, like that type of move.
That's not coming from 83, which is why you have to, if you want to make that move, you got to trade back first.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There has to be step one of the process. Get your D tackle that you're happy about. Even if it was Tyleek Williams. I mean, in that situation, if I got a lot of ammo and I move from, I don't know, the Rams pick in round 2.
They don't have one.
A bad choice, I guess. The Bills,
Houston,
pick.
or Buffalo,
somebody like that. Somebody you went pretty far back to get us, because even to get a second, I think you have to trade with. You can't move down 3 spots from 21 to 23. I don't think.
Right, you're probably not going to get the 2.
Right. But I would explore all options.
Now you might get 2 3s, in which case you might be able to move 2 3s in next year's second.
And next year's 3
to get up.
Yeah. Right. I'm real interested in that. I mean. And again, I'm a scouting staff of 1 or 2, the 2 of us, and I read or watch. I don't sit down and talk with Mr. Milroe or know what he was like in first grade. But if I was convinced that all things lined up, I'm going to be aggressive. Yeah. Especially once DT is in the building.
And I think that's where I'm not interested in trading this year's first-round draft pick or next year's first-round draft pick to make that move. But if I can make it happen by moving around a little bit.
And I find my guy on the cheap.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to figure out the cheapest way to get Lamar Jackson.
Yeah.
Or Josh Allen. Or
so again,
any path to possibly
get that type of player. They moved back to then come back up and get Lamar Jackson.
Yeah. It worked out for them.
Worked out.
Yeah.
By the way,
now they have more ammo than the Steelers than the Steelers do now.
Nick Chubb was the 35th pick in that draft. We were talking about that earlier in the show.
Yeah.
After Rashad Penny. Seahawks took Rashad Penny at 27.
That's the height, weight, speed guy, too. Should have taken the better back.
Yeah. Was there another back?
That was the Saquon year.
Yeah, Saquon went number 2 overall. Don't take a running back in the first round.
Right. That's not Derrick. I was thinking it was Derrick Henry year. It's not.
Yeah, he was earlier than that. But, Nick Chubb was the 3rd back taken. The 4th. Sony Michel went in the first round as well.
Oh, yeah. His teammate.
Yeah.
At Georgia. Okay.
So,
I know Chubb had a knee injury before at that point, too. So
yeah.
Maybe there was a little bit of medical.
I think if you did it that way, I could much more understand it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm only giving up maybe 1 or 2 of those future picks.
Mm-hmm.
I'm moving some stuff around this year because I moved back and picked some stuff up.
All right, hypothetical. Would you say yes or no to this? Day 2 is over. You have Nolan or Harmon or Grant or whatever, Milroe, and that's all you've got, and you don't have next year's 3rd. Or next year's 2nd.
Next year's 2. Yeah, because I know I got 2 3s next year,
and
I got a quarterback.
And I got a quarterback that might be the answer, and I'm walking into day 3 with all my picks for a nose and a running back, and if I left the first 2 days with just those 2 guys.
And I think with a guy like Milroe, if I were going to make that move, The fifth-year option actually
it's real value
is
because
valuable.
the first year is not very good.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if he's going to
he's
Pro Bowls,
he's going to redshirt the first year and maybe year 2.
right?
He might play. I'm going to find some ways to get him on the field.
Right.
But he may not be my starting quarterback in year 2, but by year 3, he might be.
He might be. For the fifth year is really valuable to him.
Yeah.
Because if he's going to a Pro Bowl already, which is a fifth-year option thing,
right?
Well, then you're thrilled.
Right.
Fifth-year option's a bargain.
Yeah.
I mean, unless it's like a Huntley Pro Bowl appearance,
yeah.
it doesn't belong.
I mean, that's kind of
what 5 years from him.
That's kind of what the Packers did with Love, to a degree. They didn't trade. They just took him where they were taking him.
And they didn't pick up the fifth-year option. They made a weird contract.
They knew he wasn't going to play.
Oh no, Aaron Rodgers was winning MVPs.
Yeah,
right. And Rodgers was 6 years younger than he is now.
Yeah. And just a thought.
I mean,
Food
you
for
might
thought.
have two big cornerstone pieces: a quarterback and a D tackle. And the other stuff you can fill in. There's not a lot of needs on this team.
No.
The rest I could fill in with day 3 stuff.
Yeah,
another nose, running back.
I got to get a defensive lineman.
I got to get.
That's one of the things.
That's still my priority number 1 in this draft.
Everybody is overlooking in this draft. Everybody.
Yep.
Outside of Pittsburgh, you hear all these other stuff. Nobody in Pittsburgh is taking quarterbacks who knows squat.
Right. I mean,
but I got to fill that need first
because it's a big one.
It's a big one.
It's the biggest need.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. But franchise quarterbacks available, I'm going to be creative to get them.
Yeah.
A potential answer.
Again, if they think he's the guy.
Right. If they're like, I'm not sure, he's got a lot of work to do as a passer, I would 100% understand it.
Yeah.
You're probably right. Then, if he falls to me, I'll get him. Or maybe I'll move up a little.
Or, if he's still available in the middle of round 2, I'll make that.
If it costs me my third this year and next year's third and I got to move up 20 spots, okay. I mean, that's worth the risk. If he stinks, I'm still taking one in the first round. Or even if he's just okay, I'm still taking one in the first round.
Yeah.
But if you think that not the stars need to align, but if I could just tweak this and give him a year and let him hang out and be a Steeler and all of a sudden we stole one, I'll roll the dice on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So just food for thought.
Yeah, it is. It is.
I wonder if
you have to explore every avenue of how you can find a superhero quarterback.
Yeah.
And that's one avenue.
Would you be willing to do that for Shuck?
Less so because I don't think his ceiling's as high. I mean,
yeah.
And I wish he was 2 years younger, but that doesn't crush me. I would love Shuck to be my 2 this year. He's going to be 26
in September of this year.
Yeah.
If he's your starting quarterback for 10 years.
That's right.
Yeah.
If I can land Shuck in some way, shape, or form, I mean, I'm still sticking by for my Steeler quarterback room or board, Milrow's my 2. I'm taking him ahead of if I have to take one at 21, him or Sanders, I'm taking him. I mean, it's just because
he's got the higher
ceiling.
That's the higher ceiling, I should say.
All I care about is high ceilings for my next quarterback.
Not saying you take him at 21.
That's not what I'm saying at all. If I had to
choose
between him and Dart and Sanders, and someone comes out of a bottle and says you have to pick one of those 3, and Shuck, I'm taking Milrow for the Steelers, especially if I know Aaron Rodgers is going to be here.
Yeah. I just wanted to give you
I don't know what to do on Shuck.
Explain
yeah. I mean, I
what
get
the
a little
thinking
wound
was
up.
there.
I don't know what I'd pay for Shuck. I'd love Shuck to be Shuck comes in, beats out Rudolph, is clearly the 2 behind Rodgers, chomping at the bit to get in there. Like, that's the home run to me. I mean, we're asking a lot.
Right.
I mean, I don't know that that's possible, and then you're like, all right, Aaron, thanks for the year. We got this 27-year-old that's ready to roll. Cool. And Rudolph's his 2.
Yeah.
I can live with that.
That's not that much different.
That's not crazy.
From what Green Bay did.
No, not at all.
Rodgers didn't start until he was 26, 27 years old.
Yeah,
Love didn't start until he was 25.
These are mature dudes that have been around the block, and the locker room's going to respect them and things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'd love either one of those guys to end up in Latrobe somehow.
But I think the trade back is the key.
Yeah, because going from 3 to where you need to get a quarterback is hard.
Yeah.
And I don't want to trade next year's first.
Yeah, I'm just not interested. You don't know what's going to happen next year.
And I know the other day I brought that up, and my logic was, if they have Aaron Rodgers, they may pick later in round 1 than 21. And if you tell me next year's 27th pick, that's the plan. I mean, it could go worse. You may end up 11th, and you're mad you traded your first.
I think that's less likely to happen than picking at 27.
I agree. I think there's a better chance they pick 27 than 10.
Yeah.
If Rodgers is, if Rudolph's, then it's a different story. You know,
Right.
I need to have Rodgers needs to be in place.
There needs to be some clarity.
Then the D tackle needs to be in place. Then we can start thinking Milrow. How do I go get that guy?
Yeah.
You know, that interests me.
That's how the dominoes
Right.
Yeah.
So, but those first two aren't that hard to line up. Well, what do I know? Rodgers might. I'm not getting in Aaron Rodgers' head. I don't know.
Steelers continuing with their prospect visits.
Yeah.
3 more guys in today. That would be Kansas State running back DJ Giddens.
Okay. Interesting player.
Texas A&M outside linebacker Shamar Stewart.
Huh. Okay.
And SMU defensive tackle Jared Henderson Hunt.
Don't know a lot about him.
He's a Miami transfer who was one of the guys that showed up at the SMU last year. Got the prerequisite size. He like 6'3", 295.
Okay.
33-inch arm. All that,
Yeah. He fits the bill.
Yeah.
Later round pick, obviously.
Later round guy.
Right.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
The idea that they're bringing in Stewart, if you look at the first round guys, and Stewart's one of those.
Yeah, I think he'll go in the first.
The first round type prospects that they have brought in, it's kind of run across the gamut.
Mm-hmm.
And it got me to thinking today, I'm like, there's no way that they're interested in all of these guys.
No, right.
But that doesn't mean that somebody else won't be. And so you put that out there. You bring the guy in for a visit. You kind of put the kernel out there that, hey, maybe we'll take this guy, and you might get somebody to trade up into that spot at 21 who really wants this guy.
It's really funny you brought that up because I was thinking the same thing over the last 24 hours, but only through the quarterback lens. If they aren't going to take a quarterback at 21, they want every quarterback they can to fall in the top 20.
Right.
So if the Giants or Browns want Dart or Sanders, you want them to trade ahead of you
to take them.
So that they fall. So, and by the way, you might be playing against that guy twice a year in Cleveland. And it's never a bad idea to do due diligence on a quarterback, and maybe they do love one of them. Stewart kind of feels the same way.
Yeah.
I wonder about Hampton.
He's the only outside linebacker prospect that they brought in.
Right. I mean, and he's bigger than the typical Steeler guys, and they could sell it that they think he's a 3-4 end when it's all said and done, or he's Leal or somebody like that.
He's an outside linebacker is how he was described.
Oh, okay. And for the press release
the
or
visit.
whatever.
And there's no press release.
Okay,
they view him as an outside linebacker.
Which is what he is in the scheme, right?
And I look at the same way with bringing in Matthew Golden.
Yeah.
I look with
I think
Stewart.
Hampton similar, maybe.
Cornerbacks.
Right.
I can't see them taking some of these guys in the first round, but you put that out there and think, well, maybe Imuari's another one.
I mean, that's a perfect example, yeah. Some of these guys.
Somebody who might want to get one of those guys starts looking at it and going, maybe the Steelers will take him. We might want to trade up.
And the whole goal is to get them drafted before 21.
Or to get somebody thinking you're going to take them at 21, so they think, okay, we're going to trade up to 21 to take him instead.
Yeah. I've been thinking the same thing all along because a lot of their visits didn't add up. And I'll be honest, I've been busy this morning. That's the first I've heard Stewart. And then you said that, I'm like, but I've been thinking about this quarterback situation. They want guys to go ahead of them. Yeah, I very much think that's the case.
I think it's just playing a little poker here.
Yeah.
And putting what's his hand? I don't know.
I don't know
what the hand is. He's making a lot of weird moves here. Like he's got a good hand, but does he?
And maybe you and I are off base with their D tackle love.
Maybe, but I don't think so.
I bet not. I kind of trust us to know these things. And how would we build a team? What do they truly need? And they haven't been in, right? Harmon was.
Far, yeah.
Okay. And that doesn't exactly show your hand either. I mean, it doesn't mean you have to take him.
It's the guys who you think might be in that 15 to 25 range.
Mm-hmm. And it's such a gray draft, too.
Yeah.
If they're interested, and maybe I do have to move up 3 spots to get the guy or whatever. I was saying the same thing, but just with the quarterbacks. But Emuari, Stewart, I don't know how they could take them at 21.
Right.
Especially that second-round pick.
But somebody else might look at him and go, well, I really like the traits, so I better go get him.
Right.
If I want him, I got to go get him.
Mm-hmm. Then again, I think they want those dudes to fall before 21 or have someone make them an offer at 21.
Yeah.
Which, all that adds up.
Yeah, and I've seen some stuff lately where some speculation regarding this draft is that you could see more movement because teams are going to have – everybody's going to have these guys graded different.
Yeah.
And so –
maybe someone's just standing out on your board after people are going like he's way better than everybody else available.
The speculation and the way we feel about it as well is that, that top 5 is the top 5.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's maybe 12 guys that are true blue chipper first rounds. That doesn't mean that that's how teams view it, though.
Yeah, I'm not even sure 4 and 5 are blue chippers.
Right.
You know what I mean? I think if you're the Patriots, so I was kicking this around on a podcast today, too. If you're the Giants at 3 and Hunter and Ward are gone, Carter's the best player, but do you really want to trade Thibodeau on, cents on the dollar? Or if you really want a quarterback, could you convince Carolina to come to 3 and then take your quarterback there at 8 or 9, or the Bears or the Niners or a team like that to go get Carter? That wouldn't change the Steelers' outlook much, but I think I personally would want a quarterback to fall before 20, or in the top 20.
It makes me think maybe we should do a mock draft where we make all the picks for the teams.
Okay.
And we entertain all the trade offers that go along with that. Because I think there could be some extreme movement.
Yeah. I mean, the closer we get, I originally thought it's going to be kind of a boring draft, but I don't know that it will. And I think the Giants and Browns hold such huge keys if they're going to try to pick their guy and then come back for the quarterback.
Right.
What are they willing to spend?
And to that point, there are certain positions that are loaded. There are other positions that aren't.
Right.
And so it's going to maybe put more of a premium on some of those guys. Maybe Emuwari is rated so much higher than the rest of the strong safety prospects, and he's clean,
or there's
unlike the Penn
safeties.
State guy or something like that.
Miami has a huge safety need.
Yeah.
Or there's only 2 that they want, and one goes all of a sudden. Well, maybe we need to get aggressive.
Maybe
we have Emuwari way higher than everybody else. I mean, if you're a testing team, you like him.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that is all interesting. And again, I really thought that way with, not that they should not have Shedeur Sanders in, but I mean, they definitely should and should consider him at 21.
Yeah.
But you definitely want the world to know or to think that you love him.
Yeah. They've essentially now, outside of Cam Ward, have either met with or been at the pro day of.
They've showed pretty blatant interest of all the guys.
80% of the quarterbacks in this draft that are going to be draftable.
Mm-hmm.
That's not an accident.
That's not an accident because they probably are considering drafting one of them.
And they probably. I mean, you're going to take 4 to camp.
There's definitely been additions to the team.
So you're going to bring a young quarterback to camp.
Right.
Whether that's a draft pick or whether that's an undrafted free agent.
What are you willing to spend and on which guys? And again, I think it depends on. I think you're trying to cover your tracks a little bit here too. Yeah, and that's a good way of doing it.
Yeah, I just see it. I was thinking about it today when Stewart was one of the visits. I'm like, they're not taking an outside linebacker.
No way.
In the first round.
They're not taking a safety either.
Right.
I mean,
they're just not.
I'm not sure on running back. I mean, I'm not sure on receiver. I mean, it'd be a tough.
Receiver would be you
kind of understand.
People who still have them taking a receiver, and that's not as prevalent as it used to be. No. You spent your second-round draft pick was spent on a receiver.
On a receiver, right. I mean, Pickens would almost have to go for it to make sense, and I don't know if that's the plan either, I
don't think it is.
Right. So, again, I was kind of thinking the same thing, that there was some cat and mouse stuff going on here, and even like in McShay's draft we went over yesterday, he had him taking Emuwari, and one of his logics was this team – in the first round, usually draft somebody that's in their building. Well, maybe they realize, well, if I start bringing in different people in my building, we'll be a little less transparent,
Yeah, and in recent years,
maybe I know enough about Nolan or whoever,
In recent years, they didn't hide their love for Najee Harris.
Mm-mm.
They didn't hide that they were, in the quarterback market in 21,
right,
22,
right.
I should say. They had looked at all those guys.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they're taking a quarterback, and
they're definitely not hiding their quarterback interest.
Right,
interest and action are two different things.
The dudes,
yeah.
Not unlike that year, it was like 5 guys that they were.
Mm-hmm.
The 5 guys who were considered the top 5. Well, this year they've covered the gamut.
Yeah,
they've looked at them all.
But like I just said, interest and taking action are two different things. I'm interested. I want to learn. quarterbacks in particular. I want their scouting report to be vast, because we are going to play against them. Is there something I don't know about them that puts them over the edge that I do want them, or am I just wanting the world to think I want a quarterback?
I just think one of the things that Mike Tomlin always talks about is being thoughtfully non-rhythmic.
Yeah.
And for those 2 years, they weren't very thoughtfully non-rhythmic.
No, they were pretty rhythmic and pretty easy to figure out,
This year, it seems like they're saying, okay, we've done this the last few years. Last year, the last couple of years, they're very interested in the offensive tackles.
Mm-hmm.
That was no secret.
Exactly.
Now it's like, okay, what are the Steelers taking? You see it all over the quarterback. We saw Emuwari. We've seen wide receivers. We've seen cornerbacks in the first round.
Yeah. I won't say his name.
Lineman.
It doesn't even make him look bad, but he texted me yesterday. He's a friend of the show, and he's kind of a national dude, and asked, what do you think the Steelers are doing at 21? And a real chance it's a quarterback? And I'm like, but it's going to be a defensive tackle. He's like, and he wrote back, he's like, oh, that adds up so much. It wasn't as transparent to me because I'm not so close to the team, and I don't know it's 100% going to be a defensive tackle, but it didn't take any convincing when I wrote DT back to him in a text. He's like, yep, that makes all the sense in the world. That's who the team is. That's what's the sweet spot in the draft. And it was good to hear from an outsider, like, yeah, you guys aren't crazy doing that over and over,
No, and again, if you look at the roster,
right,
where's the hole?
Where could you not?
Yes,
live
quarterback
with, right?
is sort of a hole right now,
and I can't fill it with a third-round pick. I mean, I can add to it.
Right.
I can put some dirt in that hole, but it's not going to.
Assuming Aaron Rodgers signs, then it's not a hole.
Right.
But you still have a hole at defensive end. Or
you
defensive
do.
tackle,
You need
whichever
one
you
defensive lineman of some sort. You need a prominent member in that room, if not two.
I mean, I'm looking on our lads the other day, and they have Isaiah Loudermilk listed as the Steelers starter. Would anybody? And that's no offense to Isaiah Loudermilk, but would anybody be happy if Isaiah Loudermilk opened the season as the Steelers starting defensive end? No.
And Cam Hayward misses a week or two. Then it's like, oh no, yeah,
right.
I mean, right? It's a disaster. Maybe this is something we should do between now and the draft too. It kind of like our 21 list. If I were ranking needs, DT1 would be number 1. DT2 might be number 2.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's why we've taken 2 in a lot of our and maybe it's a true nose tackle.
Right.
But you want to get both. Ideally, you could get that in one player, but I think you'd still want to take another guy who's a depth piece.
I do too. I mean, I think even if I have Nolan or Harmon or whoever, I'm going to have a hard time turning down another defensive tackle I like a lot for a running back, a developmental quarterback, I mean a McCord type or something like that, and certainly anything else on defense.
Yeah. I mean, I just think that's the way this whole thing aligns, and it just seems to me that the Steelers are being very thoughtfully non-rhythmic with their visits.
Yeah.
It's all over the place.
You can try to read what we're doing, but there's a lot of smoke here.
Yeah.
I tend to think the same thing. It's funny you brought that up because I thought I was going to spring that on you from the quarterback perspective. Not that they dislike Sanders or Dart or any of those guys, but I think you want the world to think you want them.
Yeah.
And
again, when you've been so transparent with what you've done the last few years, now you switch it up a little bit, and that's zigging when everybody else is zagging, and we know what the Steelers want. Well, wait a second. They brought in like 6 first-round guys, but they're all different positions.
They're all different, right? They can go any direction. They're a wild card. Meanwhile, they're just sitting here. We're taking defensive tackle, and we don't want to be that stuck in stone. But they're taking defensive tackle.
Yeah,
and maybe even take it a step further. Maybe you could push a division rival, Cleveland, to spend more than they should to get Sanders or Dart or something like that.
We've seen mock drafts where they're trading away a bunch of picks to go up and get a quarterback ahead of the Steelers. All the way to
18. You can't do it at 25, Cleveland. You better act now. Get ahead of the Steelers. Got to get ahead of the Steelers. So now you're short other resources.
Yeah, it's
the maybe this isn't even the segment, but the Flacco signing is a little weird to me too.
That doesn't move the needle of it all for me.
Well, I just wonder how it affects Cousins. I thought for sure it would be Cousins, Pickens, and a pick.
I think it takes him out of the Cousins market.
I think it absolutely does.
Yeah. And all of a sudden his market is where?
Do they just hang on to him and wait for someone to get hurt in camp or something like that?
Hope for a Sam Bradford deal.
Or is Aaron Rodgers going to retire and Cousins coming here? I mean, that crossed my mind. Like now what happens to Kirk? Or is he just going to be Falcons' backup for the year.
The Browns just wanted to take the bird in hand. They
know him.
We've had Joe in the building.
Yeah.
He knows the offense. It's not going to be.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I would prefer Cousins if I were them.
Sure.
But maybe the Falcons aren't moving him, or I don't know. I thought that was an odd move to happen today.
Yeah. Well, I just think they wanted to get that out of the way.
Mm-hmm.
And they could still draft one. I mean, they still only have 2 quarterbacks on their roster.
Right. And them and the Giants are really similar. I mean, I don't think their quarterback rooms are all that different, and they both could still pick one.
Yeah. So.
Steelers football happens here. The Pittsburgh Steelers Audio Network.